Holy hell. Now listen, I know some people were let down by today's stream. I would have liked to have seen a strike, something a little more engaging on the PvE side of things to showcase Armor 2.0 and its synergy. Unfortunately, we didn't get to really see that. But what we did get to see, we got to see some finisher moves from the Titan. Yes, it's pretty epic. They didn't talk about it much, they just showed it once or twice, but it does bring up questions like how much damage does it actually do? When can we engage the finisher move? And how does this work in something like PvP? Another thing we saw, Ward of Dawn is getting a buff, and it's a big one. Weapons of Light, boys, is back. Oh, I can scream. Our Titan bubble is finally getting its balls back. And yes, you'll be able to throw something like the Saint 14 helmet on, grant your team Blessings of Light, and simultaneously Weapons of Light, just like old school. Now, another buff that's heading to one of our subclasses is Bottom Tree Night Stalker. Yes, it's getting a buff in both its neutral game and synergy categories, as well as its super damage. It was mentioned that it's also going to do more damage in PvP as well, so I'm assuming it should one-hit kill in PvP, but the way the buff is working for its neutral game and its synergy for its grenade and smoke is that as each one of them does damage, continuous damage that is, to combatants, they charge each other. So if I throw a smoke at an enemy, it hits that enemy and it's consistently doing damage because it's a smoke effect, of course, my grenade will recharge. If I throw a grenade down, like a void wall grenade, and it's also applying damage to combatants, this is actually giving me my melee back, or in Night Stalker's case, a smoke grenade back. Another thing that was really interesting is if you throw your smoke grenade down on you and your allies and give everyone invisibility, this also procs that synergy effect. Needless to say, there's ways in which we can load out our armor pieces to allow for probably continuous wombo combos. Now, let's get into the details of Armor 2.0. We got to see armor sets for the Titan class, the Hunter class, and the Warlock class. They did not show off artifacts, but they did show off the different mods that can be applied to your armor pieces, and of course how to upgrade those armor pieces to take more mods. Now, upgrading your armor pieces will require Gilmer, legendary shards, as well as enhancement cores, which increases in material cost the higher you go in that armor upgrade. But at the highest end, to fully upgrade a piece of armor, it will require 4,000 Gilmer, 5 legendary shards, and 1 ascendant shard. Now, fully upgrading and masterwork your armor piece is not just going to be for show. It actually gives you +2 for all of your stats. So that's for your intellect, your strength, your discipline, mobility, resilience, recovery. All of those will receive benefits of masterworking your piece of armor completely. Now, having a fully masterworked piece of armor now gives you 10 points in which you can allocate mods to that piece of armor. And this is when things get crazy. The way armor mods work is it's not a one-time use. Once you find it, you got it. Once you get an enhanced targeting mod, you can slot it in, but continue to reuse that same mod on any of your other armor pieces that can take it. This is really good news, guys. Essentially, we'll be able to experiment with our mods instead of it just being a one-slot, one-time use. That was one thing I was concerned about. So having the ability to slot this in multiple pieces of armor to experiment with all of these mods puts more emphasis on actually upgrading pieces of armor versus constantly tracking down mods. Now, the way mod cost works is obviously the rarer the mod or the better the mod, the more it costs. So for instance, an enhanced hand cannon targeting perk costs 6, whereas just a basic targeting perk for sniper rifles costs 4. But even when we look at something like a precision targeting mod, this costs 1 more than say just a hand cannon targeting mod, because precision gives you both the benefits of target acquisition for your slug shotguns, your scout rifles, your snipers, and your hand cannons. So of course this is going to cost a little more, but not as much as an enhanced mod does. Now, essentially what these armor mods are, they're the same perks that we see on our armors already. They essentially have just been pulled and have been turned into mods. So if you notice here on the Titan helmet, we have just basic targeting perks, which is what we already have on all of our helmets to begin with, as well as some reserve perks. But then when we look a little further at the gauntlets, we've got a bunch of loader mods, which is what already comes on our gauntlets to begin with. So it's not overly complicated in terms of what we've seen on our previous armors and what Armor 2.0 is going to bring. Chest pieces is going to have an opportunity for you to have things like unflinching mods on it, as well as some reserve mods. Leg armor pieces can have things like traction, as well as scavenger perks thrown on it. About the only major shift that I saw, if you know about the perk remote connection, Action, which gives you the ability to gain bonus super energy on sniper rifle kills, which is like the equivalent of something like Pump Action, which is for shotguns. These are perks normally found on our helmets. This has now been moved to like the Titan Mark. So essentially our class items would take mods like those. So those were the only major shifts that I saw in terms of perks that were pulled from armor pieces and where they had been shifted to. Now you don't have to just load out your armor with weapon benefiting perks. You can also load it out in other things. You can give yourself a reduction in discipline, which of course drops our grenade recharge rate, and you can do the same thing for strength, which is our melee, as well as intellect, which is our super. Now it seemed like each mod that was tacked on for one of those would give us a plus 10 in our stat menu down there. Now I'm not sure how much plus 10 actually reduces the recharge rate of those things. We'll have to test that after Armor 2.0 goes live, but this is another cool way to slot out your armor. Now let's get into the more confusing aspect of Armor 2.0, affinity. So it was mentioned today, and it was also shown live, that there is certain affinities with different weapon types, and this of course affects how we can slot out our armor mods. Now notice that some of our armor pieces here have void, arc, or even solar, which means they can only take either neutral mods, which would be things like our intellect, discipline, or strength mods, or a mod that matches its specific energy type. So if it's a void armor piece, it can only take void mods. Arc can only take arc mods, solar mods. This is what someone called like double RNG. Not only do you have to get the armor piece that has the appropriate stats that you want, but now it'll also need to have the same energy type, which matches our mods. I think most people would have preferred to just have all of our mods be neutral to where it can be slotted into any armor piece, but this is obviously Bungie's way of making sure that the grind continues. And yes, this does extend the grind. Now in terms of elemental affinities, this is when things got a little more confusing. Most, if not all of our weapons had specific elemental types or affinities. And from what we saw in the stream, it appears that something like a sniper rifle, its affinity is void. Shotguns and its affinity is arc. Auto rifles and its affinity is solar. Now the reason why this matters is if you don't have armor pieces with the matching elemental type, you will not be able to slot those armor mods. So say I wake up and I want to use sweet business. I'm ready to get crazy with some sweet business. If I don't have any armor pieces with solar affinity, I will not be able to utilize any of my auto rifle mods. At least that is what we saw in today's stream. So it doesn't necessarily put an emphasis on grinding mods. Instead, it puts an emphasis on grinding armor with the matching elemental type. And on top of that, grinding the piece of armor with the matching elemental type with the right stats in terms of its default base intellect, strength, discipline, resilience, recovery, as well as mobility. As far as armor mods go, it seems the two ways we'll be able to grind them is through in-game activities like Iron Banner, raids, or a lot of stuff dealing with the gunsmith. So I don't necessarily think there's going to be a lot of emphasis on grinding for those mods. Like I think initially it's going to be difficult in getting all of the enhanced mods that we wanted or that we previously had. I think the biggest grind is going to come down to armor pieces. Did you get the right roll? On top of, does it match the elemental type? And even after it matches the elemental type, this is when saving gear sets is probably going to become a thing. Like if you don't have Destiny Item Manager, I would highly advise you get it, because after Shadowkeep, I'm going to start saving like, this is my sniper loadout. This is my get down crazy melee loadout. Or this is my hand cannon loadout. You know, I mean, it just depends. And I'm sure a lot of this is going to change on the fly, at least initially. But there is a level of depth here that is a little difficult to wrap our heads around. The other side of things is, how does our previous armor pieces compare to Armor 2.0? We see the durations there being dropped through the stat menu, but I don't know how much that actually drops it. As in running full intellect mods on our armor pieces in Armor 2.0, does that grant us the same reduction in super regeneration as something like 5 super mods pre-Armor 2.0? Now, something that they said today that really let me down was that our exotic armor pieces will convert to Armor 2.0, but only through our collections. Meaning if you have that God Rolled Heart of Inmost Light or Stompies, that will not transfer to Armor 2.0. Instead, you'll need to go into your menu or your collections, pull that pair of Stompies out that has that new static roll in its stats, and then start applying mods to it. Now, of course, if you got the mods, you can turn it into a God Roll. If you got a traction mod, boom, throw it in Stompies, you now got Stompies with traction. I've got Dune Marchers, still have not got traction on it. Voila, I'll be able to throw traction on it now. The reason why I said that was unfortunate, I guess I was under the impression that our current exotic armor pieces that we grind modded for it that does have enhanced perks on it, that we were going to somehow be able to pull those enhanced perks out of it and apply them to our armor pieces in Armor 2.0. Maybe that was just hopeful thinking, as that would probably immediately cut out the grind toward mods in Shadowkeep. So guys, that is Armor 2.0. We didn't really get to see much in terms of like what changed with these subclasses. Yes, we've got Weapons of Light back. Yes, Bottom Tree Night Stalker got a buff, but we don't know details in terms of numbers. Instead, we did get a good look at Armor 2.0. The pros, we get the ability to essentially mod out our armor in any way, shape, or form that we want. We want to rock double scavenger perks for 2 different weapon types. Boom, go right ahead. You want to obtain armor that already comes with the highest discipline stat, and on top of that, apply discipline mods to even bring it down further. Boom, you got it. The downside to Armor 2.0 to me is the affinities. Maybe it'll work better in practice, but just from what I'm seeing right there, it definitely will lengthen the grind, tremendously so. And again, like we said previously, grind is okay. It really is okay, but only if the Armor 2.0 system and whatever benefits it brings far outweighs our current armor system. If it does not deliver on that front, we're gonna have a hard time motivating the community to get involved with this level of grind. And I say level of grind, who knows? Maybe armor pieces with like God roll stats are just gonna rain on us. So we'll just have to see. Fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching. And as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.